Thank you for joining Jennifer Schaus and Associates in our 2019 webinar Wednesday series. We are coming to you live from downtown Washington, D.C. Our webinars are every Wednesday, and you can find the upcoming schedule on our website. Past webinars and all recordings are also on our website on our YouTube channel, along with over 160 other recordings on federal contracting topics. All are complimentary. If you have questions for our speaker today, you can email her directly with the contact information you'll see on the last slide. All right, just a little bit about us. We are a Washington, D.C.-based firm and provide services for federal contractors. This ranges from market analysis reports to proposal writing and also post-award compliance. More information is on our website, so please visit us there. We do offer advertising, so you can contact me if you would like more information on that. And our webinar today is sponsored by AccuTrack. Here's a short message from them.
AccuTrack Consulting and Accounting Services is an 8A WOSB CPA firm committed to supporting entities sustain growth in government contracting. Our outstanding DCAA accounting solutions reduce audit risk, improve cash flows, and give you peace of mind. Contact us today to learn how we can enhance your DCAA accounting efforts.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our speaker today is Judy Bratt, and she's going to be covering how to get in front of your federal buyer. Judy, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Let's move to the next slide right away. So here's the one big thing I want you to know. If you realize nothing else from this webinar, the one big thing you need to know about federal contracting. There's no such thing as selling to the government. Yep, you heard me. There's no such thing as selling to the government. Next slide. There's only selling to humans. Next slide. Here's what I mean. I talk to thousands of business owners every year. And here's the things that we're going to be going through on this webinar. Let's get right into it. Next slide. I always ask folks, who do you want to get in front of? Some folks say, I want to get in front of Veterans Affairs, or I need to be in front of Homeland Security. Some folks, they're getting there and say, oh no, my people are all at PEO Strive. Other ones say, no, it's HHS. Next slide. There's only one problem with that. None of those things are your buyers. Next slide. See, at the end of the day, go back one slide. At the end of the day, there's a real human being that has their signature on that contract right next to yours. You're selling to actual humans. So to be successful, you need to get specific. Next slide. So, who exactly do you want to get in front of? Next slide. Well, you're actually looking at individual federal humans. Yep. So get on a piece of paper, because you're going to do a little bit of work here. All right. I want you to think really clearly about who the human beings are that you need to be getting in front of. Next slide. By getting specific, you need to be identifying names, first name, last name, title, phone number, email address of people who actually need what you do. And how many do you need to talk to? You need to talk to as many of them as you're willing to call on and develop relationships with. Next slide. If you don't have a list with real people right now, then you need to build your list of actual human beings that you need to be talking to. I'm going to make this easy and straighten it out a little. There are players at 5 layers in every single federal agency where you want to be doing business. All right, here they are: the contracting officer, the end user, the small business specialist, the stakeholder, and the prime. Now, of those, next slide. I want you to think about who your buyer really is. There are folks that can be influencing what's happening, but there are 2 folks that are critical to your success. One is the contracting officer, who has signing authority over that requirement, and among other things, runs and chooses the acquisition process. The other is a set of folks that I'm going to broadly call the end user, the person who is choosing, specifying the requirements. They're stuck with the results of what that competition is going to be, and they are also in the group of folks who decide what the funding is going to be and when it's going to show up. The end user might have a lot of different titles. That could include contracting officer's representative. It could be program manager. It could be anybody that has a title, a job title that is similar to the job title that people have who are already buying from you. So if you're not really clear on who all you need to be talking to, one of the things that I encourage you to jot down are what are the typical job titles that people have who are your customers. Now, next slide, please. If you're having to go and figure out, well, wait a second, that's a lot of cast of characters. I want to remind you, we talked about 5 players at 5 layers, small business specialists and stakeholders, by which I mean typically the SES or the deputy cabinet secretary, the secretary of the agency. Typically, those very senior people and the small business specialists are not your buyers. Now, I put an asterisk because there are very few of us that, I'm one of them, that a small business specialist might actually buy something from me because I offer program education related to small business. But in almost every case, small business specialists and stakeholders aren't your buyers. They can help, but you need to set priorities because you've got a limited amount of time. So with all that, next slide. Where are you going to find all these people? Holy cow. All right. I'm going to make a really quick run through of 6 places, 3 sources that if you are not tapping these to build the list of people you're going to call on, then you should be tapping these. Federal agency directories. If you have not looked to see whether or not your federal agency has an online employee directory, then you're missing the boat. All right. Some agencies, Veterans Affairs, for example, do not have particularly accessible one-point employee directories. Others, General Services Administration, Health and Human Services, their employee directories are a complete gift to you as a taxpayer and a business owner. Go look. The next 3 all relate to contract data. The past contract data in federal procurement data system, federal agency forecasts on their websites or small business pages, and solicitations, including not only FedBizOps, but also if you have a GSA schedule in eBuy, these are places where contact names, emails, phone numbers, telephone numbers, and email addresses are there. So instead of just crawling through these places looking for things to bid, turn your lens around and take a look and start peeling out the contact information from there and figure out how they figure into your contact development strategy. Remember that once you have some of that information, you can do a brute force search for more information about these folks on Google. First name, last name, agency. Federal buyers, end users, contracting officers often make presentations or are speakers at events, and you will find a tremendous amount of information just if you've got a partial information on a buyer. See what Google can pull up. Finally, 2.2 million federal employees are on LinkedIn. You can go and search LinkedIn by agency as current employer and by job title, just to start. All right? So if you've got nothing else, if you've got to drop off this webinar right now, slide 19 is your friend. All right? Now, next slide, please. Here's the thing. I'm going to debunk a big myth. Contracting officers do want to talk to you. This is Josephine Cobb. She retired from Travis Air Force Base after 50 years as a contracting officer. You better believe that there are a whole lot of contractors she talked to, but just not always when they wanted to talk to her. And that's true with a lot of your federal contracting officers. Good news is Federal Acquisition Regulation 15.201 says that agency officials are encouraged to talk to industry, especially to discuss innovation. Find out more there. It is not a federal acquisition regulation you can print and hold up in front of the door and all of the barriers will melt. It is important to understand that rules of engagement do permit contracting officers to talk to you, but you have to understand their world from their point of view. Next slide. One of the things that vendors often want to know is, hey, what do contracting officers really think of us anyway? Well, I'm going to tell you. If they don't know you and they've never heard of you, and you walk through the door, no matter how bright the smile, no matter how firm the handshake, next slide, all your contracting officer is really seeing, next slide, and again, is a great big ball of risk. And oh, they don't like risk. So let's get right to it. Next slide. Why don't they return your calls? I have done research for you, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why they don't return your calls. Here are some of the top things that contracting officers tell me. First, they'll say, you left a rude voicemail. Rude voicemail, you're thinking. How could that be me? Well, think about it. Are you feeling stressed? Is your federal revenue not where you want it to be? When by the time you are making calls and you're leaving a voicemail for somebody and you're trying to reach them not just the first time, but the second time or the third time, do you have the planet's happiest voicemail voice? I bet you don't. So rethink your voicemail strategy. Remember, you're talking to real human beings who at this time of the year are getting dozens to hundreds of voicemails. Make your voicemail cheerful, short, say your phone number distinctly, say it twice, and talk about a really specific thing that you need to ask them about. So if you make that email inviting, warm, friendly, you have 15 seconds of someone's undivided attention and time. How do you want them to feel when they hear your message? Honest, even making that one change is going to increase the odds that somebody's going to call you back a lot sooner. I'm not going to give you an example here. If you want one, let's talk. There's a whole strategy on voicemails and strategies I share with my clients. Second reason why somebody might not return that call, it could be they've got a solicitation on the street. Even if the solicitation has nothing to do with you or your company, they don't necessarily want to take a chance. So another reason why they might not return your call is they're competing something and they want to make sure that they're not going to give you any kind of advantage over somebody who didn't call. Third, I'm out of the office. Imagine. Do you ever leave your office? Surprise, human beings. They get up, they move around. They're not always at their phone. Imagine that. They could be out of their office for a day or a week or a meeting, or the secretary of the agency calls them and wants to see them pronto. Does that ever happen to you? They could be just out of the office. And hey, it is summer, even though it's fourth quarter. Some of them have families with kids, are on vacation. Cheer up. Next, I don't buy what you do. If you haven't done your research and you're just calling people on spec, then you're wasting their time and wasting yours. Sure, they're public employees. They will call you back in due course, but you're not going to be their highest priority on a return call if they don't buy what you do. Next, they might not need what you do right now, but finally, next slide. You just might not have broken through the noise yet. Next slide. So if you want to get in front of your federal buyer, how many touches do you think it takes? 5 to 7, 8 to 15? Write it down, write down your number. I'm going to change the slide in 3, 2, 1, next slide. First, you need to focus and persist. Next slide. But expect that your effort can take, next slide, 16 to 30 touches. Next slide, from contact to contract. Bear that in mind. So how are you going to make that interesting? What do I say? Next slide. Let's first look at what not to say. Here's the top 5 mistakes that contracting officers say vendors make and what to do instead. Let's count them down. Next slide. Top mistake number 5. Ask me about something I don't do. Next slide. Fast fix. Research the data and ask me about requirements that I actually handle. Top mistake number 4. Next slide. Ask me who won the contract or who's going to win the contract. Seriously, they can't tell you in advance, but next slide. You should already have that information from the federal procurement data system. Use the data, do your own research. Don't ask foolish questions and use up their oxygen and waste their time. Next slide. Top mistake number 3. Ask me for matchmaking with the primes. They don't want the liability. Only you can do your due diligence. Next slide. Do your own networking and matchmaking and research and due diligence, and consider a free service like govmates.com, govmates.com. If you want to know more, check it out or ask me. I'm a GovMates ambassador in my mysterious and coveted alternate life. Mistake number 2. Next slide. Dump me with data I didn't ask for. Seriously. Your contracting officers have a lot of things they want to know, but they're going to get very specific, especially in fourth quarter when there's a lot to do and not a lot of time. Next slide. So how to fix that one? The facts, ma'am, just the facts. It's answer the question that they actually ask and then mark supplemental information as just that. Next slide. Top mistake number 1, go fishing. Hi, I'm a service-disabled veteran-owned, woman-owned business in Abdon. You got anything for me? Seriously. Next slide. Most important thing you can do is have a specific question about something that they actually handle. You'd be surprised at how much faster your call is going to get returned. Next slide. So what do you do? What do you say? What do you ask your federal buyer? Shift the focus of your content to them much more than you. Use some of the checklist of sources. Research everything about the individual human you're calling on. Hang out online where they do. Check out the LinkedIn groups where they are, GovLoop where they may be listening. Put yourself in their shoes. What's happening for them right now? Fourth quarter, they've got stuff on the go, they've got problems. Offer ideas and content they can use. Next slide. So we covered a whole lot, but there's one thing left. We talked about who you want to reach, how to decide, 6 reasons why they don't take your calls, 5 worst mistakes contracting officers say you could be making, what to do instead. Next slide. And now, if you are still secretly wondering, what do they want? When you are not alone. This is one of vendors' top struggles of the hundreds of people that I talk to every year. Next slide. So if you want to know the answer to that, I've got something for you. I have a complimentary handout that I created just for you. Why federal content marketing works and what your buyer wants right now. So if you go to this link, growfedbiz.com/federal-content-marketing. Again, growfedbiz.com/federal-content-marketing. You can get that information. All right. So that is what I have for you. And I'm just going to put that right there in the chat box so you can see it and you can click on that. Organizers and panelists right now. I'm just going to make sure everybody gets it. If you could pass it along or you can take it right off the slide. We're doing next slide, a follow-on webinar on how to win your meeting and get invited back. While this is full right now, we would love to have you. So if you'd like the link, you see my contact information on the next slide, and you'll be able to contact me. I would love to hear from you. I hope you really enjoyed this session and you got a lot out of what it was that we offered. If you have any specific thing that you want to pop in the chat, you've got other questions, the way that Jennifer sets it up, she encourages you to get in touch with the speaker, and that's me. So I can hardly wait to pick up the conversation. You can see that there's a lot of options you've got, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. We're all done for right now, but we'll catch you on the next webinar.
Thank you so much, Judy, for your knowledge and insight today. Like she said, if you have any questions, please contact her with the information you see on your screen and join us for the next webinar. And this concludes this one. Thank you, everybody.